Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and tonight on Age of Heroes, Path of Public Service, I'm proud to bring you the Diana Montford Show. Greetings and welcome, Diana.
Hi, how are you? Little backstory here. I'm Diana Montford. I'm transgender, born male, became female, and I am apparently the world's first transgender television journalist. I have a television show on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and public access, and it has been on for 34 and a half years. So that's very nice. Now, these are not my guests. These are other members of the Triumvirate. We're using the term Diana Montford Show because it's become a brand name for all things trans. But the other members of the Triumvirate are, in alphabetical order, Ms. Cathryn Platine.
Hi there.
Who is a well-known trans activist and feminist activist, and attorney and New York State politician, Ms. Joann Princivalli.
Hey there.
And we are going to be discussing what New York Magazine has termed the New Dark Ages, i.e., Project 2025, the horrifying plan or design for living that the extremist, fascist Republicans have planned for the U.S. In short, they will turn the U.S. into an American Taliban. And we are going to be discussing the horrors lying in wait unless we vote and do something about this. So, ladies, any opinions here?
I got lots of opinions. It's 900 pages of holy moly. And it's going to be a shock to everybody. And, of course, this just came, right after we finally found out who the Republican VP was going to be, J.D. Vance, otherwise known as the couch fucker. And, yes, he is self-confessed. I am not insulting him by saying that. He has actually admitted to this in writing in an autobiography.
Okay, how does one fuck a couch?
Basically, apparently he likes to take a latex glove, turn it inside out, and put it between the couch cushions. And, of course, Matt Gate wants to know how old...
Loneliness is a terrible thing, J.D. Okay, well, at least you didn't have to wipe the dried cum off the naugahyde, but what a nut. I mean, well, at least the sheep in his town were safe, so that's good.
The thing that gets me is why on earth, even if you were doing something like that, would you write about it? This is family values, at its finest.
Well, at least he didn't knock up a small-town girl,
Yes, but, interestingly enough, this ties into the 2025 thing about us. And that is that one of the provisions in 2025 is to outlaw pornography and to jail anybody associated with it. Well, I don't know. This kind of sounds like pornography to me.
There you go. Yes, but of course, they never jail one another. They only see crime in others, in their political opposites.
Well, but basically their plans for people like us, the three of us, is that we are pornography.
Living, breathing pornography, my.
Yep.
At our age.
Yes.
There's a certain backhanded compliment in that, but okay.
But anyway, that would make us illegal by existing. And that is the way they're coming after trans people.
These people want to throw away the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, ignore equal protection under the law, and make us all slaves and serfs. Absolutely. And this is the most pernicious kind of oligarchy. I mean, they're throwing away everything, including the Magna Carta. They're dragging the world back to literally the Dark Ages.
Yes, pretty much so, yes. It's amazing how far back they're willing to, I'm surprised they didn't disenfranchise women yet in that thing, although 900 pages, maybe that's in there too, and I missed it.
Well, they will disenfranchise them in many ways and eventually probably take the vote away. But there are other ways to disenfranchise them, you know. I mean, they will, 1,000 little cuts. They will, you know, make women chattel again, and it will be awful.
Oh,
And God save women who don't want to be married and do not wish to be under a man's thumb. I don't know if they'll still allow convents, because in medieval Europe, and Joann can corroborate this, the only way for a woman who wanted to escape a man's world, to a degree, was to enter a convent.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So this is, Joann, what do you think?
Well, you know, aside from the fact that that we've been screaming about this for months and months now, and the general public is only now becoming aware of how insidious Project 2025 is, and as soon as that started happening, they had this so-called assassination attempt to divert the attention of the public from Project 2025 toward, oh, we need unity, and we have to stop being critical of the people who are about to transform America into a dictatorship. And I don't buy that. They're the ones that planned that so-called assassination attempt.
All three of us feel that it was staged. I certainly do.
Exactly.
But I don't think there's any question it was staged. You know.
Well, I can tell you how they did it. Theater arts and science major that I am, here's how they did it. He had a blood capsule. You know, in movies when you see someone with blood trickling down the side of their mouth, that's a blood capsule. It's made of gelatin, breaks very easily. He had it in the fold between his thumb and his hand. The shots rang out. He fell to the ground deliberately and then crushed the blood capsule against his ear, and that's where the blood came. They break very easily because they're meant to be broken with a movie actor's capped teeth, and caps aren't all that strong, so you have to be careful. No corn on the cob, ladies. So, you know, I mean, you have to, you know, so that's how they did it, and it's very easy to do, and the next day he was playing golf with no bandage. That night, however, he appeared with a maxi pad stuck to his ear.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've got the TV turned on with the sound off, and I'm watching a picture of him right now with a maxi pad on his ear. And a lot of nurses have been saying, there's no way that that's a legitimate dressing for an ear. You know?
Right.
And
all his cult members do the same thing to show solidarity.
Yes, they're putting patches on their ears instead of MAGA hats. It's like, this is ridiculous. This is beyond ridiculous. And Vance, yeah, he thinks that a woman that's being abused should stick with her husband. I'm wondering how his wife feels about that. She's a lawyer.
Well, the Catholic Church does hold to that, so that is something.
Are you serious? The Catholic Church thinks that's good?
Yeah, because they don't. The Catholic Church doesn't approve of divorce, or actually, they don't really approve of remarriage after divorce. But the point is that their first line is to always encourage the abused party to stay with the abuser and be obedient.
Right. Yep, that's the party line. That's the party line.
This is why women entered convents, and you know, and probably will again, as a way to escape the patriarchy and to be all that they could be in a convent. My stepmother actually entered a Carmelite convent in Morristown, New Jersey in 1990. She'd always wanted to be a nun, and when she was 50, she entered a convent. And there she is in a cloistered convent. And, you know, I mean, this is why women enter convents, so their talents can unfold. If you listen to early music from, say, 700 years ago, often the pieces were written by nuns, because it was the only way they could unfold as human beings as completely as possible and avoid patriarchal control to a point. These convents were still subject to the rule of the church, which was, of course, owned and run by men.
Yeah, so
right.
They didn't escape that. They basically escaped being sexual, you know, prey by being, and arguably not even that sometimes. So, but that's neither here nor there. I don't want to go Catholic bashing.
What are we going to do if Trump somehow steals the election or wins it outright because of the corrupt electoral college and the mind-controlled fascist robot public, and all this happens? What in God's name are we, the trans community, going to do?
Well, I can tell you that during that long, rambling, record-setting speech of his at the
93 minutes, I believe it was.
The longest on record, one of the things he clearly stated was that they were not going to let the Democrats win. Period. The end.
That implies a certain threat.
It was a threat. It was a direct threat. It was he was not going to accept anything other than his being elected.
Yeah.
And that is what he said. And he did, and it was straight out. You know, if it was the speech was so long that a lot of people missed that. I happen to have heard it.
That is correct.
And so it was a direct threat, basically, that he is not going to accept any kind of a loss. And of course, right now the Democrats are busy stabbing each other in the back to the point where, it's like, I feel like I lived through 1968. I was invited to Chicago that year, but I didn't go because I had to earn enough money to my tuition for the following year at Ohio State. But
wasn't that Kent State, Ohio State? Isn't that Kent State?
Well, Kent State is in Ohio, yes.
Kent State's in Ohio, but I went to Ohio State. But this was 2 years before the Kent State shootings. This is the 1960s.
That was in May of '70, as I remember.
Right.
Right, but I'm talking about the pivotal year of 1968.
Yes, the Chicago 7 and all that. Yes.
Yeah,
and Mayor Daley. Well, we all remember. All three of us were alive then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what the Democrats did back then. They did a brokered convention when Bobby got shot and killed, and the man who should have gotten the nod was Gene McCarthy.
Right.
And instead, the party hacks basically thought he was way too progressive, and they were terrified of Bobby getting it anyway. But they weren't going to be able to deny Bobby because of the whole Camelot.
Who knows who really shot him? We'll never really know,
Yeah, but at any rate, they instead brokered the convention with the riots going on in the streets of Chicago. Thank you, Mayor Daley. To Hubert Humphrey, the Hump, as we called him back then, who was
personality minus himself. Yes.
Yeah, the man had a personality of a lump of coal. Okay.
And not to diss any health problems, but he certainly looked like a Down syndrome child, didn't he? Remember?
Well, he was a real piece of work. Anyway, and of course Nixon wound up getting elected, and as a result of that, and it looks like the Democrats are heading towards that exact same scenario again.
Yes, but we the people, we do not consent to be governed by a dictator, and we do not consent to have the Constitution and Bill of Rights thrown out. We the people, and certainly all those hardcore feminists, are not going to allow this. Is it possible that we will secede from the Union, New York and California and several other states?
I've been predicting that for years, yes. Because basically, the other thing that they've been saying, the Republicans have been saying, is that, that it's going to be a bloodless revolution if the left allows it to be.
I know, I've seen that ad, I know. And at the end of it, they show the things they want to get rid of. They show a photograph of Betty Friedan and a photograph of Gloria Steinem, meaning no more women's rights. I see. Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, of course they're going to get rid of that. They're going to get rid of everything. They're going to get rid of all the regulatory agencies in this country. Actually,
Goodbye Social Security.
as we talked about last month, the Supreme Court has already set the stage for that.
All right, now, if we secede from the Union, will there be another physical civil war, a bloody civil war, or will they just say good riddance to bad rubbish and let us go?
That's just an interesting question. I don't know. It will be very interesting in many respects because all the Republican states are the ones that take all the money from all the Democratic states in terms of the redistribution of wealth in this country.
Yeah, there are only a couple of red states that are net payers into the system, and that's strangely enough Texas and Florida.
Yeah. On the other hand, all the forts and nuclear weapons will be in the hands of the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not such a great thing, because those of us in California and in the far Northwest and the Northeast, we don't have any of those. We don't have any missile silos. So
all right, now let's be hypothetical here. Suppose someone does succeed in a genuine Trump assassination. I'm not saying that should happen, but let's just say that it does happen. Does that then destroy the Republican Party's sway with the people, the great unwashed who don't know which end is up?
No, you see, here's the thing about the when you talk about the quote assassination, close quote, or any other thing like that. They have the Heritage Foundation, the Federalist Society, and all the other clandestine groups that have been trying to
They're
turn
not so
America into a
clandestine anymore.
I know, but for over 40 years, they have a game plan. Every single one of the Republican candidates who were in those primaries, with one exception, Chris Christie was an exception. Other than Chris Christie, every single one of them, including Nikki Haley and
the Indian guy, yeah.
And they all signed on to Project 2025. They are ready. They would be, and if there was a mistake made and a shot accidentally hit Trump,
yeah.
Well, they already have
there. Yeah.
They already had those. They already have them all lined up to take that step and become the next presidential candidate, and they will follow Actually, they might even follow the mandates of Project 2025 more faithfully than the rather erratic Trump.
Well, let me ask you this. Trump wants to pull out of NATO. Trump does not care about Ukraine, does not really care about Israel.
Oh, he cares about Russia and North Korea.
I know that.
And
will
China.
The world allow Trump to win? Will the world let this happen?
Yes,
because it will have repercussions throughout the so-called free world if this person wins.
Okay.
And if Project 2025 takes hold. So
will
the rest of the world allow this?
The Russians, the Chinese, and the North Koreans, and the Iranians even, are all looking forward to it.
Yeah, because we'll be part of their axis of evil.
Correct.
We will have come full circle, and we will be, one of the power players in the axis of evil in our brand new fascist state.
You would be amazed at how quickly people can be trained along those lines. When I lived in Madrid, Spain, from 1971 to 1973, a cousin of my mother's, my mother had died, but he was my mother's contemporary. He was in his 40s when I met him. He was like a big kid. We used to go out and get drunk and then go driving. That's why I have a bump on my nose, because we were in several car crashes. Anyway, he was a member of the Franco Youth. And he told me the last time I saw him, because I literally he made an outright homosexual pass at me. I was a boy then. And I was so shocked. I mean, incest, really? I said, no. and he had no use for me after that. But anyway, he actually told me earlier that day as we were sitting in a bar getting drunk before we went to a lake to go swimming. Swimming is what people do when they want to see your body, you know. Anyway, apparently I passed muster. But anyhow, he said, well, you know, the Holocaust is American propaganda. That never happened. And I sputtered, but there are, you know, pictures and newsreel films that are, no, contrived, all invented. I thought this guy is fucking crazy. Thank you very much. You know, and his parents were progressives who were involved in the Spanish Republic. He had turned on a dime and become a card-carrying fascist. It is amazing at how quickly people can be made to, you know, Sig Heil everything that comes down the pike.
As I've been saying all along, it takes about 30% of the population. That's what it took in the Weimar Republic, you know, for the Nazis to take over, and that's about what we've got for the Trumpy Dumpies here and the maggots in America. And America has always had this isolationist, you know, streak in it, and this you know, push towards fascism. You know, this is not a new thing. Unfortunately, in our country, you know, these people have always been there. Henry Ford was a you know a wannabe fascist, for example. Lindbergh was a fascist, you know, supporter of Adolf.
A complete fascist, yeah.
And you know, so some of the biggest names in this country were
Henry Ford, I believe, was a fascist.
Yes, that's what I said. Henry Ford
and
was,
Donald Trump's grandfather and father
yeah.
were fascists, and his father was a KKK member.
So none of this is new, okay? It's just that we've been lucky so far, and progressives have taken the, you know, have won. But progressives, ever since the Weathermen blew themselves up in New York City, you know,
I remember. I lived in Greenwich Village when that happened. I remember that very clearly. Yep.
Ever since that happened, the left has really kind of lost its edge, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so this scares me that this time they're going to succeed.
Yeah, the problem is that the far right has been so organized for so long. Since before the Reagan administration, they were planning on their takeover of the courts, which they have pretty much accomplished. They have been able to destroy the federal court system, particularly with many. The George W. Bush appointees were not all the worst of the worst, but the Donald J. Trump appointees from his presidency, the 45th presidency, his appointees were all from the Heritage Foundation Federalist Society list. So every single one was vetted by the people who are trying to destroy America. And those judges have been having an impact on case law far beyond their numbers. They're not the majority of judges, but they're the judges that Republican secretaries of state go to because they know they control these judges and can get bad decisions out of them. Now the thing is that we have not been able to discern the rest of their planning for this until the publication of Project 2025. For instance, I was already aware of Roger Severino, who is the author of their chapter on the Department of Health and Human Services. Severino worked in the Department of Health and Human Services in the Trump administration, and did a great deal of damage to the way trans people were treated in that administration, and he is poised to head that department if Trump were to get elected. So Roger Severino and his wife, who was very, very much involved in the same they're sort of like the conservative power couple when it comes to being talk about Catholic, conservative, anti-trans, anti-women, anti-whatever. They're among the worst of the worst, and no one really mentions their name because people aren't really aware of the actors in this in this scenario and what they're going to do. So you've got Roger Severino. You've got this. We really ought to be talking about what Project 2025 actually says about us.
What does it say?
Well, starts out, they refer to transgenderism as toxic normalization and drag queens and pornography invading school libraries. All right. They're basically conflating transgender with drag. And at this point, I don't mind that they do it because, I want everyone to be free. And if they want to send us all to camps, they can try, but we're going to stop it.
I'm not going.
They talk about pornography, as Kathy mentioned earlier. Pornography manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children.
Yes.
They're referring to us as sexualizing children when they are the ones who, even with Disney cartoons, have been sexualizing children forever. Fairy tales, sexualize children. Everything that they teach in schools sexualizes children. It sexualizes them to be straight, little girls to become obedient wives. They get taught in the churches as to how sexualized they're supposed to be. And they're blaming us for sexualizing?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. There's more. There's so much more. They talk about transgender extremists who are undermining girls' sports and parents' rights.
That would be us, I imagine.
Right, and we're talking about little girls, little trans girls, who are no longer allowed in many places to play school sports with cis girls, and the thing is that only marginalizes little trans girls, and basically they're all worried about someone who transitions in college and yada yada this has nothing to do with what they're doing. They're attacking the children. They're attacking the children, and they will continue. They're already doing it on the state level. They want to do it federally. Nassau County, the county executive made it an executive order that was set aside by a judge on technical grounds, and now their county legislature has passed an ordinance prohibiting trans kids from participating in sports played at county-owned athletic fields.
Yes, but that's being challenged legally, isn't it?
Yes, of course it's being challenged legally. Of course, at the same time, you're going to have, if a Trump administration comes in, that's not going to go anywhere. The challenges won't go anywhere. If the Trump administration comes in, they'll be able to make sure that Nassau County will get its way.
All right, let me ask you this. If Trump wins, or no, if we, the Democrats, win, will Trump then mobilize his fan base to invade blue states and just take over? I mean, what's going to happen?
No, they have already basically made their game plan completely and utterly clear. They are already stating that the Democrats have rigged the election. So, if Trump loses, he still is going to declare himself the winner.
And try to set up a government. Yep.
Yeah, and now if you remember back at the George W. Election.
Yes, I remember. I'm well aware of that. Yes, versus Al Gore. Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you remember what Trump and Fox News did is they simply declared. Not Trump, rather, but what W and Fox News both simply declared W the winner. Period. The end. And they proceeded to when there was still an open question about the Florida votes, they simply declared themselves the winner and proceeded to act as if they did win, and that's exactly
Yes, but excuse
this
me.
time.
This time around,
And they will be backed up by the Supreme Court, because don't make no mistake, the Supreme Court had no problem sticking their hand on it back then, and we have got a much, much worse Supreme Court now than we did then. You know, so you know,
but we the people, I mean, we who are Democrats and progressives, and, you know, what if we say, no, we will not subject ourselves to the rule of these people? What happens to us then?
well, we're going to be rounded up and shot.
Yep. That's the plan. That is their plan.
Right after the mass deportations of every single non-American citizen in this country. That's what they, if you were watching any of that convention, they were basically talking about that. That was one of the game plans they came up with. Now, not a word about abortion, but gather up every single immigrant in this country, yes. And deporting them immediately.
But will these immigrants meekly go, or will they fight back?
Well, something like this has happened before, and a whole bunch of American citizens got rounded up in the mix, okay? And that never got straightened out all the way. So, you know, it will be a police state almost immediately. Now, the question is, will the military back it or not? And I don't think the military will, simply because Donald Trump has been such an ass about, you know, the military. And so
calling dead war heroes suckers and losers. Yes,
there are enough of a cadre within the military, primarily in the Air Force and the Space Force. The Focus on the Family people occupy the same place. They have their main offices are where the Air Force Academy is, and for many years they exerted an extraordinary influence on the development of Air Force officers. So,
so the Air Force is going to be a problem, but the Army, the Marines, the Navy, not so much. You know, there is not a lot of right-wing support any longer, where there used to be a major leaning towards right. That no longer exists. Thank you, Donald Trump. At least, you know, he screwed the pooch at least on that one. But yes, Joann is absolutely right about the Air Force. That's basically been completely taken over by the right wingers. And people don't seem to be aware of that, but that was very, very deliberate. But, you know, what we have to watch out for is the Supremes. Donald Trump is going to be declared the president regardless of the election results by the Supremes. Mark my words. That's how it will go down. There will be a challenge that goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and they will declare him to be the victor. There's no question about it.
Exactly. And they also have their plan if there's anything if the election goes to the House.
Oh yeah, it goes to the House, and we're screwed on that too.
Yeah,
they have
it's based on the state by state.
And we just had another Democrat die. You know.
Yes, the one woman who ran for mayor of Houston. Yes.
Yeah.
Of pancreatic cancer, which is a hideous way to die. Yes.
So we're kind of screwed on that too. So the question is then, what do we do? And and I think that's when America breaks up.
Well, so long as there are safe places for everyone who wishes a safe place, so long as, say, New York and New Jersey and, I don't know, Delaware maybe, Pennsylvania, and on the West Coast, California, so long as these places are safe harbor for those of us who are, considered not right by the fascists,
Okay.
It should be all right, shouldn't it?
I don't know. My nightmare scenario, I don't know if you want to hear it or not, is that
I do.
when I was young and I lived in India, it only had been about 17 years before that the India and Pakistan gained independence. It was 1948 was one of the other watershed years in world history, and that was the year that Israel was formed. That was the year that India and Pakistan separated. And I heard the horror stories from people who it was fresh in their memory, okay, of the trains of Muslims leaving India, and the attacks on the trains, and the beheadings that were going on, and everything else during that mass migration, where the Hindus and the Muslims were separating into the different camps. There was a bloodbath that went on during that, and that's my nightmare scenarios of something like that happening in this country, with GLBT people and anybody brown and black.
Not to mention uppity women, in quotes.
Well, uppity women, they want to control the uppity women, okay? And right now, the only chance for winning the election is the American women. That's the only shot we got, okay? But it doesn't.
But as you pointed out, even if he does, Democrat win the election, the Supreme Court will negate that and make Trump the titular winner.
But if they do that, hopefully that will be a bridge too far.
Yeah. So they've already gone too far.
That will be the bridge too far, finally. That will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and that will be, and basically the Northeast will say, we're not having anything to do with you people anymore, And then, again, the question will be, will the Trump administration or the maggots basically, want to keep the country together, or will they just say, good riddance to all you snowflakes in the Northeast? Hopefully they'll just say good riddance to all you you snowflakes.
For the time being, until they get the bright idea to invade and enslave us.
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. They have such disdain for, Yankees that I think they just let us go. I'm hoping that
from your mouth to the goddess's ears.
I'm hoping they just let us go. It will be an interesting situation. I'm not sure which way New York is going to go, to tell you the truth. New York, was a crapshoot during the Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
New York didn't want to declare one way or the other.
New York had plenty of Tories, and when you think about it, New York City in particular was considered Southern territory in a lot of cases, because the people who profited the most from the triangular trade were shipping magnates in New York City.
Yep, exactly right. And a lot of people, since we don't teach history anymore, nobody knows these things. It's just us old people that actually learned history.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's by design, so people will be ignorant and malleable naturally.
Well, your average American hasn't even got a clue how our government works, to tell you the truth. They don't understand the difference between a republic and a democracy. When, by the way, America is a republic, not a democracy. The closest thing we've had to democracy in America has been the New England town meetings. And when I was young, that was how it was taught, But we are a representative republic, and so the popular vote never counted in this country because the founding fathers didn't trust the great unwashed.
Well, that's how the Electoral College came about, sadly, yes.
Yes, and my entire life there's been talk about getting rid of the Electoral College, and it has never seriously been even attempted. So, and it's not going to be, and it screws us over. That's one of the things that the Republicans have used to their advantage, to basically, take over elections that they never should have won if we were a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump. And if the popular vote counts for nothing, it almost says, well, why bother to vote, I mean.
Well, it's a popular vote by state.
The Democrats have to win by, I believe it was 7% in order to be able to, take the minimum amount to win the Electoral College.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be a 7% win. Okay, that's how it's set up. The game is rigged.
Exactly.
Ironically, that's what Trump's been screaming, but it actually is rigged, but it's rigged in their favor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know what we're, and by the way, that was not me coughing, amazingly enough. That was someone else. I love it. But anyway, I don't know what we're going to do. There's nowhere to escape to. The entire world is turning right wing. Where in God's name could we go? Where could we refugee to be safe?
I'm 75 years old. Nobody's going to want to take me in. I'm a troublemaker. I have an FBI file. It's about 3 inches thick, for crying out loud.
Well, we might try the St. Regis Mohawk.
I don't know. I'm an aging, ineffectual threat to the United States government. That's
much to my shock. I found out I have an FBI file. I'm just a little actress. How can they do this? But I have an FBI file. Shock, shock, shock.
Okay, because in the 90s, the government started keeping track of transsexuals.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because transsexuals are 2 standard deviations above the norm in intelligence and creativity. The higher you go up in Mensa, the more transsexual women you find.
Mm-hmm.
So, we scared them. We practically invented the internet, as we've discussed in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We invented the hardware that made it possible, and then we invented the software that made it possible. And if we had ever gotten we're using profanity tonight, right?
Bet your fucking ass, bitch.
Okay, well, if we'd ever gotten our shit together, we could have ruled the freaking world, okay?
Yeah,
so,
I guess.
But we never did. And now, we've got the family values. We've got J.D. Vance. What a piece of work he is. I mean, he
Well, you know why they did that? It makes it easier to recycle those signs that say Trump Pence to Trump Vance by just changing 2 letters, the PE to the VA.
Yeah, well, one of the things that Democrats should be screaming to the rooftop is the reason why Pence isn't the VP choice is because Trump supporters wanted to kill him.
Kill him, yes, exactly.
They wanted to hang him. And they
had to give it already. Yep.
They should be playing that, as part of the ads,
Mm-hmm.
the Democratic ads. We should be pushing. Okay, but her emails, Hillary Clinton. Oh my God, she had a server in her house that she had, her private emails going through.
That Trump specifically asked.
The biggest deal in the Donald Trump literally sold out our secrets to the Russians the second week he was in office.
Mm-hmm.
He sat in the freaking Oval Office and with a bunch of Russians and handed them over all of our Israeli intelligence.
Mm-hmm. And even before that,
them. And this is the second week he's in office. Well, never mind all the nuclear secrets and everything he stole and refused to return and probably sold to Putin.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we screaming this from the rooftops?
We knew before the 2016 election, in the clear, he told Putin and the Russians that they should go and go after Hillary's emails. Yes. And they did. They didn't start doing it until he told them in the clear in that speech,
and he
said, Russia, if you're listening, that was I can't understand why that didn't stop him from being elected in 2016.
Anybody that gives, two handfuls of whatever about national secrets should be screaming to the rooftops about Trump.
Do you think that the Illuminati, the so-called Illuminati, the people who really run things, are bound and determined to have Trump win so that we do all become slaves and serfs? Because it would be much more convenient for these people, the people who run things.
Quite frankly, I have been shocked that nobody's taken him out.
Well, I don't, like as I said earlier, I don't think that would do us any good, because they have a very deep candidate field.
Yeah, and I think you might be right, and that may be the only thing that's keeping him alive.
Mm-hmm.
Because other than that, all we can do is hope for the that final cheeseburger to get him.
I really don't understand how someone who eats Mickey D's twice a day for decades can still be alive.
Well,
especially with the doctors he uses.
Yeah, he doesn't even have real doctors.
Kind of like his spiritual predecessor.
Yeah.
Who was his spiritual predecessor?
From Germany, is the man whose book of speeches is on Trump's bed.
It is the only book Trump has ever read. Yes. And the fact that he literally quotes Hitler directly about vermin and other stuff.
Yeah, but the right wing,
should.
When we came up with Homeland Security, that was straight out of the German playbook.
Yes.
That was during the W administration. Okay.
Yes.
And it was like some of us heard that and said, "That's a dog whistle."
Yep, it was. Absolutely.
That was straight out, Nazism.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been leaning that way. And of course, now W basically he looks pretty benign now. I mean, even the man that we used to think was the evilest on the face of the earth, Dick Cheney. People were looking back fondly to now, compared to this current crop. Who would have thought that it could get worse and worse and worse? But I should have realized that, because I've seen it in my lifetime.
That's their plan. They've been planning it since shortly after the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and the Immigration Act
in 1965.
Yeah,
right.
Back that far, yes, it does.
That's when they started to organize their takeover of America.
And
so this is basically a transgenerational fascistic movement, because surely people who were adults in 1965 are not exactly known for their cognizance at this point, any of those who are still alive.
But the planning has been going on, and they've brought people in, young people. They bring young people in, they groom them. And grooming is what they do, not us.
Yeah,
they groom these young people to be conservative. Look at what they did to all these law students get recruited into the Federalist Society, and they get told, you do well, and we'll get you a judicial clerkship with a federal judge, maybe even a Supreme Court judge. And that's what they did. And then that ended up getting them appointments to become federal judges themselves.
It goes even deeper than that, Joann. Basically, when I was in school, they started to de-emphasize logic, teaching logic, debating, and history.
All the things that Socrates taught, yes,
And,
exactly.
When I was in school, almost every school system in America required you to take some form of civics.
Civics, yep.
So that you had a basic
Well, in grammar school, we used to have civics, remember? Yeah.
So that you had a basic understanding of how our government works, because that was considered to be, you know, an absolute minimum thing. And you can't become an American citizen without knowing all this stuff, okay?
Well, that's only if you're an immigrant. If you're not an immigrant, you don't need to know anything.
Exactly, and they don't want you to know it anymore because, you know, your average 30 and 40-year-old doesn't have a freaking clue how the government works.
Mm-hmm. Even older people, you know, they rail against the government this and the government that, and they say, but you better not take away my Medicare.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, keep your government hands off.
All right, last question, since we're almost out of time. If the Trump administration tries to take away Social Security and Medicare and every possible safety net there is, will our generation and even a slightly older generation then rise up and show their mettle by making sure that the Trump administration has a very hard time? Is that possible?
What would end up happening is we'll just die. If we don't have medical care, we'll die.
Outside of, well, yeah, basically, you know, in my case, all I got to do is just not put any new batteries in me in a couple of years.
Because you have a pacemaker.
Right. But you know what? There's an awful lot of old people that, you know, grew up with guns.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That eventually people, our generation and even a slightly older generation, will say, no, you are not taking away our only means of livelihood because we will die. So we will die anyway, but we will die with our boots on.
Well, you may see that happen, yes. You may see, you know, a gray rebellion, which I think would be wonderful myself. And I know I'm not supposed to talk about, you know, the weaponization, but, you know.
Well, yeah, because we live in a fascist society, and no doubt they are listening to this broadcast, as they always do. And believe me, I was shocked out of my mind to think that some little television actress like yours truly has an FBI file. My goodness. And it's only because I'm trans, is that it?
Well, my FBI file goes all the way back to the 60s.
Yeah,
so.
but you're like a bedrock activist.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, in fact, you know, I used to joke that, you know, I was, you know, one of my big disappointments is I didn't make the Nixon enemy list.
So, Joann, is this because I'm trans?
Possibly. That's probably the main reason. I know that that they've had their taps on me ever since I was in high school, when a friend, as a gag, subscribed me to the Communist Party newspaper.
Oh, Lord. That's not funny. Whoever did that was not funny.
He thought it was a great gag.
Yeah, well,
So,
I got you noticed. That was, you know, not that far after the McCarthy era, so, you know.
I know. So I know that they've known about me since then.
And it was when they had an eye on young people because they thought we were all simmering revolutionaries.
I got into a lot of trouble in India. I almost created a couple of international incidents.
Well, we're almost out of time, so let's hear it.
Well,
short version.
Short version, basically, is I had a bunch of kids that were from military families, and we were going to go gliding, and we crossed over the airport at Safarjung, which was half military and half civilian. And so the easiest way to get to the civilian side was to go over and through the military side, and we did. We jumped the fence, and there was a couple of MiGs in the hangars, and we took pictures of ourselves in the MiGs, and we got caught.
Oh, wow.
You're lucky you're still alive.
We got caught, and I basically got us out of it by blackmailing the head of security.
when he tried to solicit bribes from us.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you do that?
He wanted a transistor radio and a Seiko watch, and I just
Class all the way, I see. Not a Rolex, just a Seiko. Okay, yeah.
well, it was a hot thing back then, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, and I pointed out that our families knew people high up in the Indian government, and that they would be fascinated to find out that the head of security was soliciting a bribe from us.
Oh, yeah, they were always afraid of Americans in Spain, too. I once bought a defective hair dryer, and my 81-year-old grandmother went to the store manager, was a department store, and said, if you don't exchange this right now, I'm going to the American embassy. The guy turned a whiter shade of pale and said, yes, ma'am, and practically handed us the store. So there you go.
Yeah, and then I got in trouble during the Indian-Pakistani War, and they didn't catch me, but well, they did catch us, but we got away, and by speaking Spanish, so that they would go to all the Spanish embassies looking for us first.
Well, on that cheerful note, I think we're almost out of time. So, okay, in alphabetical order. Cathryn Platine, how can people contact you? Hopefully not the FBI, but how can people contact you?
Yeah, the FBI can contact me through Cathryn, Cathryn, @gallae.com, GALLAE.com. That's the easiest way, or just Cathryn Platine on Facebook.
Okay, and Joann Princivalli, how can people contact you?
You can contact me at my email address at Joann, Joann, followed by M as in Marie, P as in Princivalli. So it's JoannMP @outlook.com. This past month my Facebook account was hacked, so you'll be fine. I mean, really hacked. I can't get into it. I had to start up a new account. So my Facebook account is Joann Marie Princivalli now. So I've got my middle name in there.
Yeah.
Okay, and I
shocked I wasn't your friend anymore, and when I got the friend request, so.
That's what happened. I literally got thrown out of my account by a hacker and cannot get back in because Facebook's methodology for getting things fixed is brain dead.
Yeah.
Well, on that cheerful note, you can contact me via Hercules. Hercules, how much time do we have?
We have 5 more minutes.
Anyone have anything they want to talk about? Some final ringing message to the world about hope and the future?
Well, let's not. The election hasn't happened yet. We need to get ourselves working towards getting whoever the Democratic candidate is, once they finally straighten out their clusterfuck. I figured, look, there's nothing wrong with Joe Biden. That Kamala Harris cannot, she's there. She would be the vice president.
She doesn't have a chance. They don't like women in this country.
No, I understand that. But the point is that switching candidates now, obviously they're not going to be running Kamala because
runner then they lose. Period.
Yeah.
I hope Newsom gets it. He would win.
No, they'll lose. Every black woman in America will not vote for whoever if they don't.
Yeah, that's true. They need to have Kamala stay as vice president.
Okay, fine, but we need a new candidate. Poor old Joe's so senile he doesn't know he's senile. So that's a shame,
It's really not as bad as they're making it seem. I mean, this is all...
It's pretty damn bad, honey. Come on.
But it doesn't... how bad he is anyway.
Ronald Reagan, his entire second term.
Yeah, well, we don't... but no. We need a mentally fresh candidate. He's too old. Time to pass the torch, Joe. Period.
Yeah, but Trump is the same thing. He shouldn't be a candidate either.
Okay.
Well...
I used to joke that I was a rational anarchist, that I thought that we should try 4 years without a president, and then Ronald Reagan came along and proved me wrong.
There you go. Anyway, he of the bright red rouge, yes. I would like to slap his makeup artist. That was lousy makeup. He probably did it himself. But anyway, he used to wear bright red rouge all over his face and heavy pancake. Made him look waxen. So anyway, so this has been what we call the Diana Montford Show because it's a brand name for all things trans. We are actually a triumvirate, and the other two members are infinitely more important than I am since they know much more about politics and the way things really work than I do. So anyway, but we, the triumvirate in alphabetical order, Cathryn, Platine, Joann, Princivalli, and not in alphabetical order, Diana Montford. We will see you on the third Saturday of every month, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We discuss all things trans, and we love you a lot, and we will talk to you next time. Love you. Bye.
And
Bye,
thank
everybody.
you all for an excellent and thoughtful episode. And I'm looking forward to more Path of Public Service episodes of this caliber. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.